Good morning once again, karibu sana. This is the Morning Cafe, November 26th, siku ya muhimu. It is the second day among the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So the conversation still continues. 29 days to Christmas, 35 days to the end of this year, 2024. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Karibu sana.
And my name is Samson Jura. As usual, it is always my pleasure hosting here on TV47 Morning Cafe, and of course working with you, Fred, is always a pleasure for me.
Right.
And of course I'm still standing in for Stanley Nyaringita, who will be coming away. Will be coming to chase me away, but all in all, we still have fun when we can.
Yes, enjoy while you can.
Yes.
So a quick look at the headlines. There's a sweep of all the local dailies. We'll be back to take a look at that. But as I said, second day of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So that conversation still continues. And at 8 a.m.
Yes, I will be speaking to Job Musembi, an advocate of the High Court. Like Fred has mentioned, it is the second day of the 16 days for fighting gender-based violence. Of course, we have very terrifying statistics. They say at least one in every three women do suffer this. And of course, gender-based violence does not necessarily mean it's violence meted against women only. There are also men who suffer the same, but the number for men is usually very low because most men see it as a taboo to even come and report such situations. Of course, we'll be talking on the law surrounding gender-based violence, so like I've mentioned, with advocate Job Musembi.
All right, before that, we'll be having the State of the Nation with these three gentlemen. James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba, and Joe Mutambu, former MP Mwingi Central. These are the gentlemen who will be assisting us to take a look at the headlines this morning. And among the headlines, tukianzia na gazeti la Taifa Leo, anasema damu mpya ya urais. Ni baadhi tu ya watu wenye wamepanga kuwania urais tukifika mwaka 2027. Tutarejelea kuangalia habari hii kwa kina baadaye.
Then again on People Daily, the main headline there being fresh law to allow sale of body parts. And body parts, this is something that is quite controversial. Yes. Because the market for this sometimes is something that is in a business that should not be desirable. Because imagine...
Well, but there's a lot of demand for things like heart, liver, kidneys.
And of course, these are things that you cannot live without. Something like a heart. You know, for you to be able to get a heart, someone has to to forgo it.
You cannot create it in a lab.
Yeah.
Daily Nation there, Ruto men sued over classified spying software. We'll be telling you what kind of software this is and what the intention was. That's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation.
And on the Standard, life about to get worse for farmers, even with the subsidized fertilizer. What is happening?
And most of it has to do with some piece of legislation that we'll be telling you more about. The Star, battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent rides? That's a question there they're asking on the front page of the Star. Remember, today being Tuesday, this paper is not for sale. It also comes with a MyGov pullout for government tenders and job opportunities. So grab yourself a copy of the Star.
Also, Adani terms the Kenya shilling 637 billion lost in the Kenya deal immaterial.
This is pesa kidogo.
Yeah, it is in regard to the cancelled JKIA and KETRACO deal that President William Ruto, during the State of the Nation that he did last week on Thursday, did mention that Kenya will be cutting ties with the Adani company.
Nasema pesa ni kidogo sana, haiwezi msumbua.
Hiyo ni kama kifunguo ya shati imetolewa.
Cross over into Uganda and take a look at the new vision and something positive about education there. Head teachers get pay rise. Enhancement to benefit prisons, police officers, and they have this is a positive headline.
Yeah.
And this actually happens a lot in Uganda, where when it comes to matters education, you find very positive headlines. When you come to Kenya, anything you mention, health, education, is just negative.
I was telling someone before this when I saw the headline, I'm waiting for those days when we'll be able to see such headlines on the Kenyan dailies, Kenyan publications.
Yes.
Where, the education sector.
We rank schools even after exams. We rank the top candidates. In Uganda, they go even as far as ranking top teachers.
Right.
Like if your class performed very well in English, they actually rank you. And they put your face on the front page of the Daily Nation, of the New Vision, like they've done for this. But this is a different story. They talk about 38 magistrates who've been appointed by the judiciary. And their faces are there. So ukitaka kujua magistrate tutakutana naye maeneo ya Kabale, anaweza kuwa hapa as well.
Right.
Student can sue for bullying. This is in Uganda. If you're bullied, you can actually go to court and say, I was bullied, and they'll take action.
As someone who has been a victim of this, I think it's about time. It's about time. Bullies can have lasting effects on some individuals, even going as far as even demoralizing you, even into your adulthood. Sometimes there are things that you might do subconsciously just because you are bullied.
Because you were bullied.
I think it's a good move.
Yes. So in Uganda, you can actually sue for that. The Daily Monitor, still in Uganda.
The price of freedom. Will you confess to a crime that you did not commit in order to regain your freedom?
Nice question there. Would you? This is what this lady did. Olivia Lutaya and some of her co-accused claim they had to confess so as to walk free after nearly 4 years in jail. So the Youth Minister Balam Barugahare, who was involved in the negotiation, says a group confessed willingly. So you're told, sema tu ulifanya hiyo makosa.
Tukuachilie.
Yeah, that's all you want. Ukubali tu, then tukuachilie.
Right. And many people are in prison simply because of such motivations. You're being told, kubali, kubali yaishe.
Alafu ukikubali wanakuambia sasa tumekupata. That's as far as the Daily Monitor is concerned. Over in Tanzania, we start off with the Citizen.
What it means as shilling appreciates against the dollar. This is the Tanzanian shilling. The shilling has clawed back some losses in recent weeks and appreciated against the United States dollar, bringing much needed relief for manufacturers, vehicle importers and motorists, among other beneficiaries. Of course, this is some good news for Tanzanians.
Meanwhile, in Kenya, I think there's a highlight there on the front page of the Business Daily. They say the shilling is not performing very well against the US dollar. So in Tanzania, another positive headline there. It's only one day to their civic polls tomorrow. But you see on the Citizen, there's no mention of that. They talk about why landlords should know their tenants. They also talk about men deserving credit in fight against GBV. Interesting. But kwa gazeti la Mwananchi wameweka habari hii ya masuala ya uchaguzi. Sema dakika za majeruhi, injury time. Uchaguzi serikali za mitaa. Vigogo, ACT, Wazalendo, Chadema na CCM wakabana koo mitaani kusaka kura. Pazia la kampeni kufungwa rasmi leo, siku moja tu kabla ya kura kupigwa. Uchaguzi wa serikali za mitaa. So the civic polls are happening across Tanzania tomorrow, and this is big news. Wapangaji hawa wanaweza kufanya nyumba itaifishwe. I will not even pretend that I have any clue what that taifishwe is. So we'll leave it there for now.
I'm there with you.
All right, so we'll be coming back to take a look at the local dailies. Once again, just a reminder that today is a second day of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So that conversation still continues, and it is also 29 days to Christmas. So let's take a look at the weather situation in different parts of the country. Tuone kama itakuwa kama jana. And we start kule northern Kenya, and this is Turkana, where it's 24 degrees Celsius as we speak, but it feels like 27 degrees. All right, and then it promises to be quite cloudy, a cloudy day in Turkana, with the sunny intervals only in late evening from 5 p.m. Highs of 32 degrees, so kuna joto kule, but a bit of rain during the morning, and manyunyu hadi around saa saba. But after that, cloud cover and a bit of sunlight later on. So that's Turkana. Let's take a look at Masai Mara.
All right, the weather in Masai Mara as at now is 17 degrees and also feels like it is 17 degrees, with the highest being at around 3 p.m. That is 27 degrees, with the lowest the moment we are in, which is now 17 degrees, promising sunny intervals during the day, and of course towards the evening, in the evening towards the night, thunderstorms and rain to be expected in those parts of Masai Mara.
So yes, so I think it's a good time for those who are visiting the park to do so in the morning hours, before the afternoon, before the rain set in. So you can actually enda uone the Big Five in Masai Mara asubuhi. Najua holiday imeanza, watoto walifunga shule. Ati Kasongo pia nakuanga huko Masai Mara. Kasongo, yeah. All right, this is in Kisii. Kisii weather, 16 degrees Celsius as we speak. Light rain likely around 10. But yes, quite some rainfall for the better part of the afternoon. Some sunny intervals for a very short period this morning.
From around 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. And of course, I've had the privilege of living around those places of Kisii. It is an island. And usually when it is cold, it is cold.
It is cold.
Yeah.
And then nasikia mvua huko ni lazima tu kunyesha at some point in the day.
And that's why the grass there is always green.
It's always green. Yeah. So the grass is greener in
where you water it.
in Kisii. Holiday weather, take a look at Malindi. 25 degrees Celsius as we speak, 28 degrees. It feels like 28. It promises to get as high as 32 degrees later on, but sunny intervals in the morning.
Right, and we get to see a bit of
manyunyu.
Rasha hivi kidogo from 11 a.m. to around 3 p.m. And this I think is just to give people that chance to cool off and perhaps have lunch, because as you can see, it's usually around that time people have lunch.
You might not even feel this your manyunyu because it's very low precipitation, actually 1.5 millimeters.
Yeah.
So, but sunny interval. So it's actually proper holiday weather. Finally, Nairobi. Mbona inakataa hebu imetoroka hiyo hatuwezi waacha. Nairobi we have to check the weather for Nairobi.
Nairobi shamba la mawe, wakulima ni wakora.
Right, so there we go, 17 degrees Celsius as we speak. Yes, kutanyesha leo. Wale walikuwa nafikiria kutanyesha Nairobi for the better part of the afternoon up until 5. Do expect some rainfall. A lot of cloud cover for most part of the day.
Right.
Sunny intervals, but briefly, even in the morning at around 7. And then later probably mid-morning kidogo. But yes, mvua itanyesha Nairobi. So be on the lookout for that.
And I'm very curious, Fred, which one would you prefer, when it is raining or when it is the sun is out?
Dry weather, sunny weather. I enjoy a lot of things under the sun.
Yeah, they say pakiwa na jua iwezi kukuzuia kufanya shughuli zako. Mvua hata iwe kidogo namna gani, there is a likelihood you'll have to stay at home.
All right, and then the traffic situation on it trains just messes up everything.
Right.
Traffic is building up slowly at the Muthaiga interchange as we speak, about 13-14 minutes past the hour. So yes, we do expect that to continue, but leo it's much better than yesterday. Jana ilikuwa imefika hapa as at around the same time hapa karibu Mathare Mental Hospital, but yeah, leo it looks very normal. Tukiangalia Jogoo Road is also, Jogoo Road is looking good today. A lot of green all the way Pakapale City Stadium roundabout. That's when you encounter the first stretch of red.
Traffic ni mslaido.
Once you get into town, Pale Haile Selassie Avenue, Landis Road, it's building up nicely. And as we said, after schools close, it means that everyone now is trying to book a bus kwenda Ushago. Hapa ukienda maeneo, kitambo kulikuwa na basi inaitwa Akamba.
Akamba bus is no longer in service.
Siku hizi ni Easy Coach. Okay.
But there is an interesting story about that bus company. I do understand the owners are related. Easy Coach and Akamba Bus.
Oh,
yeah.
So probably it was just a change of name.
Yeah.
And at any story too. Mombasa Road is looking good, going all the way to town. You might just get confused by these stories. Langata Road too, looking good. A bit of traffic around high-rise area along Mbagathi Way. You can see some of it building up there, but it's because of matatus there. Going up Mbagathi Way towards City Mortuary roundabout. Ngong Road looking good as well. And Wayaki Way too, nothing much to report. It's still loading, but for most part from the ABC Place towards town, nothing there to worry about. So that's the traffic situation in Nairobi as we speak. It's exactly 1:15 the hour. Let's take a look at the dailies in depth. Sasa tuanze na gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Anasema damu mpya ya urais. Omtata Matiang'i wametangaza nia ya kuwania urais, huku Wakenya wengine wenye maadili wakipendekezwa. Jamaa kama huyu aliyekuwa jaji mkuu David Maraga hajatangaza yeye kwamba anataka kuwa rais, lakini Wakenya wanasema pengine anaweza.
And if you can see then wenye maadili has been
wenye maadili. Omtata at least yeye amesema. Matiang'i pia ameonyesha nia, lakini Kivutha Kibwana ni miongoni mwa wale wenye ambao Wakenya wengine wanasema wenye maadili.
Naam.
So wanasema Matiang'i ameingia mkataba na kampuni ya Canada kumvumisha, huko Omtata akiteua kamati ya kuchunguza uwezekano wake wa kuchaguliwa mwaka 2027. Natembeya, Maraga na Kivutha wamependekezwa na Gen Z. Je, watafaulu pale palipowashinda viongozi waliopo? Ni swali linaloulizwa pale. My question is, there's so much interest in succeeding President Ruto immediately after his first term. Is it an indication of the general feeling about President William Ruto's presidency? Because usually there's a lot of reluctance to try and compete with an incumbent. But now kila mtu anaona I can get into the fray as well.
I think President William Ruto came into power at a time when Kenyans were inching towards getting frustrated, and I usually say that the straw that broke the donkey's back was the finance bill. Remember, many people have been decrying since the president started implementing more tax, the new tax regime that saw many taxes being introduced and hurting the pockets of many Kenyans, and many people have. And also the president has also been associated with the culture of lies. So,
well, probably these are just some of the results, that there are more people now who are expressing interest in succeeding him as president. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili wanasema wajigamba kwa sadaka ya mamilioni. Wandani wa Rais Ruto watoa vitita kanisani Kericho na Pokot na kuahidi kutoa zaidi. I think they're just trying to tell the Catholic Church to toa pesa.
The president himself said atolei kanisa, anatolea Mwenyezi Mungu.
Kilio kuhusu ngono za ajira kaunti yafichuka. Maafisa wa bodi za mapato Laikipia waliitisha hongo ili kutoa ajira. Habari kamili kwenye kurasa wa 4 wa gazeti hili. Na hapa mwisho tuligusia tu, Gachagua apokonywa walinzi wote. Ripoti zasema hatua hiyo inatokana na uamuzi wake wa kushiriki siasa. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 2.
And is in this the same thing that happened during the Azimio protests when the deputy president then did say that the members of the ODM party and some members of Azimio at the time, the security were withdrawn because they were arranging for protests. You can remember the governor of Migori, his security were withdrawn, and that is when the deputy president, Gachagua, stood and said, sisi tunaangalia miezi 6 hivi, mukibadilika tutawarudishia.
So hata pengine akibadilika, his own words back to bite him. So the people deal there.
Yes, fresh law to allow sale of body parts. This is quite interesting. And if you see now that they are seeking to have a legislation, it means it's something that is happening in the black market.
Yes. Now this is a law proposed by the Embakasi West MP, David Mwenje.
Which makes me come again to think some of these people who, for lack of a better word, I would call them John Doe. Those people who are involved in accidents, whose family members have not identified them, and perhaps maybe even been through the process of funeral arrangements. What happens to the organs? Do people even ask? Do we even as a nation ask what happens to?
There's a very short window to actually harvest the organs for them to still be viable for transplant.
Right.
So if at all a day passes and that hasn't happened, probably it was no longer viable. So this law allows for this decision to be made by people even before their death or immediately after death. So probably your spouse can give consent that immediately after death, yes, you can go ahead and remove the heart or probably the kidneys and donate them to someone else. So it's a very interesting piece of legislation as proposed by this Member of Parliament for Embakasi West, Mark Mwenje. Sorry, I said David Mwenje. I think David Mwenje was his father, Mark Mwenje. And this one will definitely generate a lot of debate. In Kenya, mambo ya vifo, nini, kugusa mwili wa aliyekufa, hawataki hiyo maneno, wa marehemu hawataki hiyo maneno sana. Sasa, blow for Bill Gates officials as court stops privileges. You remember that gazettement of Bill Gates getting diplomatic and his organization getting diplomatic immunity in Kenya. So the courts finally blocked it, but the case still continues. So this is something temporary. That's the People Daily.
Ruto men sued over classified spying as software. As we had mentioned, and you can see some of President William Ruto's very close people are pictured on that in that particular story. I did read somewhere this was President William Ruto's way of countering the things that have some of the headlines and some of the things that people are saying on the socials in regards to the way he's running the country and his administration in general. And this is something that we would say in the African continent might be new, but in other developed countries, it's something that happens all the time.
So this is a special software that the president and his team were hoping to use for propaganda. And a high-stakes commercial litigation has exposed President William Ruto's alleged plan to acquire an online propaganda machine to counter hostility against his administration and boost his re-election campaign. I'm reading directly from the newspaper here. The fallout between president's close aides and the American owners of their 120 million shilling software has revealed a scheme to deploy confidential software with a capacity to spy on targets. The story is on page 6 and 7. And this is very intriguing because now this is really high stakes.
Right.
The use of technology to spread propaganda just for purposes of politics.
And you know, President William Ruto has always painted himself as that person who is a key proponent for the advancement of technology. Even during his administration, he has been talking a lot about the digital superhighway, enhancing digital economy, and perhaps even investing more in the digital sector.
Interesting. Gachagua security withdrawn. I think we had mentioned it when we were looking at Taifa Leo. But there's a very interesting story here on the front page of the Daily Nation. Nasema, woman, hear this, married to 2 men, fights their widows for over 100 million shilling estates. Where? So this Andrew Anyoike Mothe, who was 54, and Geoffrey Kenyua Mwangi, 35, died 2 years apart, but in death they are controversially united by one woman, Mary Mwende. Mwende is fighting the widows of the 2 men, demanding a share of their properties in separate battles that expose the double lives of those involved.
Interesting times we live in.
Yes. So, woman married to 2 men.
And also there is something on education here about Moi University. The ACC report, Moi University ignored. Moi University ignored Horn's officials. The management board of Moi University failed to implement recommendations made by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission following a 2022 audit, plunging the institution into the current problems that it is facing. And that has not been made better by the recently called off lecturers' strikes. We see Moi University was one of the universities that I would say was mostly hit, given the bad PR that they had, and also that particular strike by the Dons. And even when you saw the cutaways on news, the students there seemed to be disoriented, if I lack for lack of a better word.
It is indeed a sad state of affairs what is happening at Moi University, at one point the second biggest university in the country. Let's take a look at the Standard now. Life about to get worse for farmers. You talk about new laws. MPs are considering regulations that will make farming a tough venture. One will need a license to sell an animal that must be registered. New authorities to run farming are to be set up, as produce handlers will need to go back to school. So we've been talking about this for quite a long time. Now this piece of legislation is finally before the National Assembly. Whether or not it will affect individual farmers or corporate organizations remains to be seen. We'll have some members of parliament here with us for State of the Nation. They'll be telling us what exactly this is about. Let me just take a look at some of the details. Proposed bill. You will now need proper credentials and identification details to sell your cows, chicken, sheep, goats, pig, fish, or rabbits. This is under the proposed livestock bill. Even donkeys and horses, mules and ducks, which are classified as livestock, must be labeled. So how do you label fish? Yeah.
And bees.
Well, it's interesting, but we'll take a look at that later on with are members of the National Assembly. That's just one of the stories on the front page of the Standard. The other quick highlights: Omtata, why I'm keen on 2027. Paleju MPs seek Adani alternative after deal cancellation. Stanbic ordered to pay some amount in tax, and high stakes as Bayern face PSG. So matters sports on the back page. Bayern Munich host Paris Saint-Germain tonight in a battle between two sides flying high domestically but seemingly struggling to adjust to the new Champions League format. So tonight's matches for lovers of the Champions League hapa nyuma: Slovan Bratislava versus AC Milan, 8:45. Sparta Praha versus Atletico Madrid, also 8:45. I'm looking for anything interesting here. Yes, Sporting Lisbon will be hosting Arsenal at 11 p.m. and my City will be hosting Feyenoord at 11 p.m. as well. Inter Milan, RB Leipzig at the same time. So for lovers of Champions League action, something to look forward to tonight.
Battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? Many people are saying President William Ruto might have made a political blunder by ousting the person he was elected with, that is Rigathi Gachagua, and replacing him with Professor Kithure Kindiki. But Fred, in the onset, there were wrangles between Kindiki and Gachagua in regards to who was supposed to be President William Ruto's running mate. And we saw there was a lot of haggling, and that which eventually led to the they settled for Rigathi Gachagua. But at the beginning of the term, you would never think that perhaps maybe there was ever going to be a disagreement between the two.
Yes, a lot does change. They say a day in politics is a very long time. So a lot has changed already. And they include also the picture of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta on the front page, meaning that these are just some of the players who will determine the future of politics in Mount Kenya. So that is a story on the front page of the Star. It's a very heavy copy of the Star because it includes a MyGov pullout. So for those looking for government tenders and job opportunities, grab yourself a copy of the Star today. It's a free copy, being a Tuesday. Smart people read the Star. Tuangalia masuala ya biashara.
Adani terms, shillings 637 billion lost in Kenya deal immaterial. The Adani Group has downplayed the impact of Kenya's decision to cancel its contract to build power terminals, transmission lines, and
probably if you look at the physical
copy, right, which is substations on its forecast earning. The Indian conglomerate, which stood to earn 633.7 billion shillings from the deal, termed the blow immaterial. The contract said the firm did not require it to make any regulatory disclosure under Indian stock exchange rules, as it is within its ordinary course of business. In Kenya, it was expected to recoup 637.7 billion shillings. That is equivalent to $4.92 billion US dollars over 30 years, or an estimate of 21.3 billion shillings a year through a new charge in households.
21 billion shillings a year, amesema ni pesa kidogo sana. Mnaweza kaa na hiyo kazi yenu. That's Adani. Other quick highlights on the front page of this paper. Ruto visa-free entry policy worsens Kenya's travel ranking. And we'll see this in one of the cartoons, that yes, that visa-free policy inamaanisha sisi we are being ranked karibu na countries zingine kama Benin. There's this one about the dollar's performance against the Kenya shilling. Shilling trades at 4-month low on Trump election hit. Yet in Tanzania, they're already talking about positive prospects for the Tanzanian shilling against the US dollar. So I don't know which is which. Mbona Kenya tunaumia namna hii. All right, so those are the local dailies. As we come to the end of this press review, let's take a look at the cartoons. And this is the People Daily. The cartoon on the People Daily, we do have a caricature of the president looking into a microscope. And what he's seeing is this gentleman with the crown, ile Murima. Na anasema, Kenyans will know my way forward in January. Na anamwangalia na microscope. But there's something he said, that the president akiwa kwa cabinet, anakodoa macho, alafu wanaogopa. So could the president be doing the same here?
And also I think perhaps this means that the president is seeing former deputy president as something that is not to be worried about, or someone who should not be
He's
bothered.
definitely scrutinizing closely.
Anamwonea kwa ile
Anasema hata transport imechukuliwa. The cartoon on the Star talks about the president's turnaround when it comes to the Adani deals. So some of these gentlemen had really gotten excited about the Adani deals and made very serious pronouncements. The CS for Energy, he's finally made it to a cartoon. So yes, Bwana Opiyo Wandayi, you finally made it. Now kuna cartoonist amekutafuta sura yako. I guess this is the CS for Treasury, CS Mbadi. Hata amepatikana kwa cartoon. Unuma DVD na Raila. So this is a group that looks, or rather appeared very excited about Adani. And then the president makes a turnaround. So what exactly happens to them? Egg on face.
But still we can see the Shah component in the cartoon. And also we have, this is a power line, and then the signboard to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
So what does the president's turnaround mean for these men, mostly from ODM and the Prime Cabinet Secretary as well? So this one talks about that visa openness.
Yeah, which was highlighted on the Business Daily.
Yes, it talks about Ruto's visa-free entry policy worsens Kenya's traveling ranking. And so this is it. In Africa, Africa Visa Openness Index rank. Hey, where is the Kenyan? He says he's only good in the long distance races. He's not here.
The irony given that Kenyan at least are the best at long distance races.
Seychelles, the Gambia and Benin, they rank much better. All right, that's a standard. And finally on the Daily Nation, the cartoon, they talk about political Simon Makondes. So we have some of these people. Let me just look at it directly because I think that's a bit
pixelated.
Yeah, pixelated. The cartoon on the Daily Nation, as we come to the end of this news review, talks about the different politicians and what has happened to them in a matter of a very short time. Makondes, Simon Makondes of politics. So yes, you start off with elections on a Monday, political disagreements on a Tuesday, handshake on a Wednesday, DP impeachment on a Thursday, raised political temperatures on a Friday, and early campaigns on a Saturday. The life and times of Kenyan politicians. Within 2 years, they've done so much that has nothing, very little to do with Kenyans, all about themselves. And then now they've taken us back to campaigns. Interesting. Only in Kenya. Now these are just some of the conversation we'll be having with our panelists after the break. MPs James Gakuya, and we do have that somewhere, tuitafute. Do we have the poster? Yes. All right. On the screen right now, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba, and Joe Mutambo, former MP Mwingi Central. The gentlemen will be in studio right after the break, so do stand by for that conversation. But after that at 8 a.m., Jura, you'll be having this discussion.
Yes, like I had mentioned, gender-based violence. Today is day 2 of the 16 days of activism against the gender-based violence. And I'll be having that conversation with Job Musembi, who is an advocate. We see and get to understand what the law surrounding that is all about. So you better stay tuned for that particular conversation, beginning at 8 to around 9 a.m. in the morning here on TV47 Morning Cafe.
All right, so let's take a break right now. Do stand by for State of the Nation.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift
the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. Time for us to take a look at the dailies today. The headlines are varied, connected in one way or the other politically, but varying headlines. On the front page of the Daily Nation, they talk about Ruto men being sued of a classified spying software. Why does the president need a spying software? They talk about an alleged plan to acquire an online propaganda machine to counter hostility against his administration and boost his re-election campaign. Well, but it appears that the plan has hit some headwinds, but at least there's a plan towards 2027. Meanwhile, Gachagua security withdrawn is there on the front page of the Daily Nation. On the Standard, they talk about Omtata, why I'm keen on 2027, another person looking forward to the elections in 2027. But the main headline there is about life about to get worse for farmers because of a piece of legislation before the National Assembly. Matters business, Adani terms 637 billion shilling lost in Kenyan deal immaterial. Hiyo ni pesa ndogo sana ya kusumbua mtu mkubwa kama Adani. Ndio anasema hivyo. On the Star, political news, battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? And they have pictures of the former deputy president, the current deputy president, the former president Uhuru Kenyatta, and the current president William Ruto. So a lot of politics on most of the papers. Even Taifa Leo wanaangazia baadhi tu ya watu ambao wame indicate the intentions of vying for presidency, and the others who've been probably touted as possible presidential candidates, including former CJ David Maraga and former governor of, what do you call that county? Makueni County, Bwana Kivutha Kibwana. So these are just some of the conversation we want to have with my panelists here this morning. Let me introduce them. Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. Karibu sana studio.
Thank you and good morning viewers.
Yes. Bwana Joe Mutambu, Former MP Mwingi Central also joins us. Good morning, karibu sana.
Morning to you.
And James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, also present here. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you.
So let's start with this piece of news that's on the front page of The Standard, because it's a bit worrying. We had a lot of this discussion earlier in the year. Now it would appear that this piece of legislation is before the House. The story is on page 6 of The Standard. Life about to get worse for farmers. MPs are considering regulations that will make farming a tough venture. One will need a license to sell an animal that must be registered. New authorities to run farming are set to be set up as produce handlers will need to go back to school. Stories on page 6. So the question is, will this affect big farmers or all farmers? Because they talk about even the need to register, even chicken and fish. And Bwana Manduku, because you're a member of the National Assembly, probably you understand more about this. What really is the case here? And will this affect farming the way it has been portrayed here on the front page of The Standard?
Thank you, Fred. And once again, good morning, viewers. Let me start by saying that I have not come across this bill. But having read through the argument in the dailies today, I think this is going to be a disruptive legislation. Given that agriculture is supposed to be the backbone of our economy, and given that even as it is, this government or even previous governments have not put adequate resources, have not really focused on agriculture as it ought to be, bringing in laws and regulations will only make agriculture worse. In fact, it will make it so unattractive that any serious person will not venture into agriculture. Mm-hmm. The government still has many more things that it has not done, beginning with giving what we would call a guaranteed minimum return. Today, as we are talking, farmers in Eldoret and Kitale have millions of maize, have millions of bags of maize that they have harvested and are being offered very low prices. Those are the things that we as a government should be focusing on, not extra regulations. Furthermore, agriculture should be seen primarily at the level of subsistence, and that is what most Kenyans do. Where I come from, in Nyaribari Masaba, the typical farmer is below half an acre of land. It is therefore not reasonable to bring laws and regulations on account of trying to make this sector compliant to some non-existent requirements. I think this law, according to me, will be dead on arrival. Mm-hmm. Of course, we know that there exists some other laws governing agriculture. We have the Tea Bill, the Tea Act, we have the Coffee Act, we have the Sugar Act. Those are regulated and they work for the sectors. And from time to time, Parliament comes in and amends where necessary. But bringing blanket laws and regulations is just trying to create a problem where there's none that exists.
Because the story says you will now need proper credentials and identification details to sell your cow, chicken, sheep, goats, pigs, fish, or rabbits. Under the proposed livestock bill, even horses, donkeys, mules, and ducks, which are classified as livestock, must be labeled. Each label will detail the breed, date of birth, and any additional information deemed necessary by the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary or county officials. Now, it remains unclear whether the law targets corporate entities involved in the livestock or applies to all animal keepers. Bwana Mutambu, of course, there's an attempt, because if agriculture is the backbone of this economy, there must be an attempt to professionalize the trade and introduce standards. And probably that's the intention of this piece of legislation. Yet, as Bwana Manduku says, agriculture in Kenya is purely or largely subsistence. Would this be deemed as out of this world, this attempt to actually legislate how I keep my chicken behind my house?
I don't know who said there's no professionalism in agriculture, number one. Number two, I don't know who said there's no enough legislation or there are no laws. In every sector, there are laws. Going extreme, because what we are trying to do is to go extreme. is now what worries me. What we may not know while seated here, or those who are in glass houses, is that 90% of Kenyans depend on their land and their produce and what they are farming. There are those who farm crops, and there are those who farm livestock. From where I come, if there is anybody who has ever went to school, their parents struggled through selling chicken, goats, sheep, cows, and the rest. You may not know this, maybe 50% of the meat you eat in Nairobi comes from Ukambani. Mm-hmm. And those people do nothing else apart from farming. When you go to Northeastern, those people do nothing apart from rearing animals. And that is their livelihood from the day the world started until today. Okay? We don't know for how long those people have been in existence. We are only talking today that we are going to regulate what has brought me or what has kept me alive from my day I was born until today. And that is what the people we call pastoralists live on. There is no family in either Ukambani or in Northeastern where you will not find either chicken, a goat, or a cow. And that is our livelihood. Now, somebody is coming to our livelihood to tell me that when my cow gives birth, you need a birth certificate for that cow or for that calf. When my donkey gives birth, you want to tell me it needs a birth certificate. It has never happened in any world. Ask me about the records of my animals, I know them. If they may argue that they are doing this for the purpose of security of your animals or my animals, because somebody can come and steal, and when they are selling, they will need a license. What I want to tell them is, our people are so organized in the sense that any animal market where we sell cows, because we have markets. You go to Ukambani, there is a market on each day where people sell their animals. Those people are so organized in the sense that you cannot take anybody's cow to the market because you will be caught by people. Mm-hmm. And the people knows this animal, this cow moving around here, this belongs to Mutambo, this belongs to Mandugu, this belongs to it. We know ourselves. We don't need any other supervision. Mm-hmm. We are good enough because we are living in that harmony. In those areas, animals sleep outside, mm-hmm. and nobody dares to touch them. It is only in these some areas, I think that is where the fear is coming from, where there is what we call cattle wrestling. In those some areas, mm-hmm. where maybe the fear is coming from, and they are trying to introduce this to other people who are not even concerned on how they live with their own animals and their own agricultural activities. So to me, trying to tell a mama boga or a person who rears a chicken that we need certificate for your chicken, and somebody has about 10,000. Are you going to have 10,000 certificates in your house? Mm-hmm. And how much will they cost them? Because one certificate will cost not anything less than, even if it's 50 bob. Why do you want to add 50 bob on my chicken, which I am the one feeding, I'm the one who's doing everything, then you want to tax it? Because what we are looking at the tail end, the goal is to tax mm-hmm. the chicken. Okay. There's nothing more.
Bwana Gakuya, are we looking at a situation where the government is probably overreaching itself, that there's too much government, even in personal subsistence lives of many farmers, that the government is not comfortable just taking a step back and allowing people to go on with their trade? They want to be involved in each and everything. If for the very first time, we're even talking about the government seeking to vaccinate all the cows in the country, even without farmers saying yes to the same.
Thank you, Edmoni. Allow me to salute to viewers, wherever they are watching us from. And coming to the concerned matter, what I would say is that there is some registrations that we may enact and force them to Kenyans and make this government very unpopular. So the choice is for the government, because most of these bills, if it's not a private member's bill, then it has to be a government bill. And if it's a government bill, taking this kind of stride, to me, this is creating a lot of war with the public because people have been in peace for long. And I don't think that, in fact, bringing this kind of new regulations on how to handle your animals, your farming produces, this, to me, is just a way of trying to regularize everybody and getting to get deeper to what even the peasant farmer is doing or is earning. Even though it is a cup of milk, you just need to regulate that cup of milk. To me, it's a sad situation. And what I would say is that there is no single registration that finds itself to the floor of the House without have taken to the public for public participation. And therefore, what I would urge Kenyans is to be ready to participate vigorously in those public participation. They must make their voice. And I think every single registrator, in one way or the other, is a farmer or a livestock dealer. And therefore, as much as you want to cast a vote in this direction, you must also ask yourself where you are putting yourself. Because these are some of the registration that you make even politicians very unpopular to public.
Right.
I don't think this is a deserving. Yes. And therefore, I would just ask members to be very considerate when it comes to passing this kind of registration. It will, to me, I oversee a situation where it will just die on arrival. There was that other very unpopular registration that was brought by Senator for Nandi Hill, which also died on arrival. And this kind of bill are heading there. Okay. And I don't think that this will see the light of the day. But in case the government push it to the throat of the House, because sometimes Manduku used to tell me that there is what you call party position.
And this one is actually sponsored by allies of the president, who controls a majority.
If it comes to that situation, I think one has to make a choice. Okay. Whether you are with the people or you are against the people.
Okay. But Manduku, is there something like too much government?
Oh, yes, obviously. Sometimes government overreaches itself, even to areas where it would not ordinarily be necessary. Perfect. We understand there's need to regulate professionals. And already professionals are working in the agriculture sector are properly regulated. Be they the veterinary doctors, horticulturists, agriculturalists, agricultural engineers. So now, purporting to regulate people who breed livestock and who even don't understand what regulation is, would be having too much government. In fact, even deploying and monitoring the enforcement of such a law would be more expensive to government than the actual benefits it intends to accrue. How do you, for example, start ensuring that all the animals in North Horr are tagged and numbered? And is there a central database? Will they have a SIM card, the way we tag our rhinos and elephants? So this is something that I think if this bill is coming from government, then I think it's misplaced, and I think it's coming at the wrong time. And as Honorable Gakuya says, getting into people's lives too much starts making you more unpopular. I heard you asking, how would you tag fish and bees? So we need to know that also,
All right. Talking about legislation.
Although I know in developed worlds, this is something I know. Those very expensive fish, I forget the name. When you buy them in Singapore, they have a chip. But that is something out of the ordinary. But you can't do that for for tilapia and Nile perch, you know, whose life expectancy is below 6 months, you know. Yeah.
So that is what is on the front page of the Standard. Life about to get worse for farmers. Talks about a piece of legislation that would affect livestock keepers and other farmers.
But Fred, sorry to go back. I wish that our friends who have these laws will be bringing a bill to guarantee our farmers a minimum return. And say, if you have an animal, you are guaranteed a minimum of so much. If you have harvested your maize, you're guaranteed a minimum return of so much. That would make more sense in this time and era. Thank you.
Speaking about legislation, there's another piece of legislation or proposed legislation that also makes it to the front pages today. It's the big headline on the front page of the People Daily. If my director can help us with that front page. Fresh law to allow sale of body parts. Now, that is also something controversial. Being that we are in an African society. This bill has been sponsored by Mark Mwenje, the MP for Embakasi West. And it talks more about organ donation. Kenyans will soon get the nod to donate body organs and tissues of their deceased relatives if a proposed law is enacted by the National Assembly. Individuals would also have the power to decide whether to have parts of all their body parts and tissues harvested for either transplantation or research upon their death. A very progressive piece of legislation, but this is one of those proposed legislation that most members, and you've been in that house, would be a bit scared to touch, don't you think, Bwana Mutambo?
I don't know whether this country has become, I don't know how to call it, because everybody is waking up with whatever they think and they want to make law out of it. It may sound good to have some legislation on how body parts are either donated, but I think that is upon me and my relatives or friends, because I can only donate to a friend or a relative. And that should be left entirely on me. Don't tell me what I should do if I want to give blood to my son. Don't tell me what I need to do if I want to donate my kidney to my son. That should be left entirely on me to make that decision. The government need to let people make decisions for themselves, because this is my life and it's my son's life. Why on earth would you come and tell me if you are to give this, you have to do that? Why?
But
because that is
a progressive piece of legislation. This is 2024. Issues of organ donation are now much easily more palatable. People are now more progressive. Issues of heart transplants, liver transplant, kidney transplant is
why do I need a law for that?
More common.
Why do I need a law? Why do I be guided by a law to give my son my kidney? Why do I need I need to understand. Why do I need it? You know? Because that what will happen, it will restrict the exercise. Because if I were to donate my kidney and my son need it immediately, but there is a law which gives me a process, well, that process may take longer time, and you know the bureaucracy of our administration, then I will lose my son.
Yet some of these things have given rise to black markets, Bwana Gakuya. Illegal trade in body organs and even human trafficking. Probably this kind of legislation is something that we need to curtail that kind of criminal activity and regularize, so that if you want to donate any of your body parts, at least there's a proper way of doing it.
In this one, even though my good friend Mutambo is against such a law, I think we have grown to a level where we need to regulate some of this. Was one, there is a very serious cartel of losing people, and when you find them already, body parts are removed. And we don't know what kind of market is up for these kind of products. I think to have a particular policy that governs that area altogether at this time, appointed time, is quite in order. Where at any point, then it can be legal and have a procedure. If you want to donate a heart, any other body parts, then anywhere it's binded by law. And I think for what I would like to say misuse, I think it is important when there is a regulation or a law that governs that particular field.
But Bwana Manduku, you know how we treat death as an African society. This will definitely have problems.
Yes, I want to agree with Honorable Gakuya that given our time in history today and given the progress we've made as a society, it is time that we faced the reality. But as Africans, we are mythical about death. We don't understand death, and we think it is something that is not supposed to visit us. In fact, we are very superstitious when it comes to matters death. But let me say this. I have not read the law again or the proposed legislation, but I know that in the United States of America, there is a law which is called the Uniform and Anatomical Gifts Act, where if you're above the age of 18, you can by consent decide that when you die, your body or parts of your body may be donated for purposes of transplant or research. In Kenya, such a law has not existed. And people ordinarily donate their bodies for research through the will, the last testament, which has in many cases been found inadequate because it is always contested by family members, as Mheshimiwa Joe Mutambu put it. It is time we realize that we are mortal and that one day we'll all die. And probably as a last gift to the country, especially in areas of research, anatomical research and medical research, willingly decide that we can donate our bodies or part of our bodies for that purpose. But again, as Honorable Joe Mutambu says, if you want to donate your kidney, for example, you don't need this kind of law. But I think the law is there in cases where there's bound to be conflict or disagreement, especially with family members who may not understand the persona.
Okay.
Don't forget that many years ago, cremation was only left to the Hindu community. Increasingly, as we become more developed and more exposed, many of our people are getting cremated every day. And so with time, these things will become so common.
All right. It is a big headline on the front page of the People Daily.
I have a problem with that. And one thing I also want to inform Gakuya. Legislation or laws does not stop criminology. Criminology and development goes together. If you decide to find a way of preventing crime, those who make the crime, they also find a way of doing it. We have a set of laws whereby stealing is forbidden. Do people steal? We have a law which says you should not be corrupt. Is Kenya corrupt? All right? So if you come with a law which says, I mean, with an attitude of trying to prevent people from doing this business illegally, they will still continue.
Right.
That law will not stop them. They will still continue and they will do it.
Okay.
Right? That does not mean if you practice or you engage in this illegal manner, there is no law to adhere to. There is laws. We have set of laws. And again, we are also saying there is too much government. So we are also bringing government to my own kidney. Please, give me a break.
It is just some of the interesting headlines today.
Give me a break.
Some of the interesting pieces of proposed legislation that the members of this panel will be called upon to actually debate and whether either approve or not.
Idemore,
fresh law to allow sale of body parts.
It is important, Idemore, to have a law.
Yes.
Just in case, things are going very haphazard. It is important to have a law that governs that area. That in fact, if you are arrested on such a criminality of a kind, then there is a law that can be able to fix you. Let us put things in order. We are in a new on a new generation, on a new state. And when we put things in order, I think it's better. It's not for anything long.
Okay.
Yeah. The donation should continue, and nobody will stop them.
It will be interesting once this piece of legislation gets to the public participation, just to understand what Kenyans feel about this proposal. Fresh law to allow sale of body parts is a big headline on the front page of the People Daily, and the Standard also goes with a proposed piece of legislation, this time around to do with farming. And this, I'm sure, will also elicit quite some debate, especially once it gets to that level for public participation. All right. We now want to talk about matters politics, because there's a lot of discussion around going forward to 2027. I don't know if we're due for a break or we just continue. There's a story that was filed by one of our reporters on this kind of politics of 2027. Yes, the story about the former deputy president's game plan. Apparently, so far, 32 political parties have been registered so far as people get ready for 2027. Let's watch that story.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has in different occasions disclosed intentions to announce his political future. This will, however, depend on the court's ruling against his impeachment matter next month. With recent upsurge of new parties registration, at least according to Registry of Political Parties, Gachagua is believed to be in talks with new entrants, which political pundits say will be risky than joining the existing outfit.
Only that now he's out of office, then getting a party becomes almost urgent. If the courts clear him, then he would want to be the head of a party and build that party to be a strong force. So that's partly the reason he's been talking in very positive ways about ensuring that the mountain is not shortchanged again, thereby making himself the spokesman of the mountain.
Gachagua is, however, said to have turned down former President Uhuru Kenyatta's advice to revive and rebrand Jubilee Party, which he ostensibly fought against in the run-up to 2022 general election. Sources says Uhuru Kenyatta was expected to endorse Gachagua for Mount Kenya region kingpinship during Embu's ordination and installation of Reverend Peter Kimani, but the plan was thwarted at the last minute.
If Ruto, from what I understand, is that Ruto had also been invited as a formality, and he had not bothered to confirm until the rumors had that Uhuru was going. So he also decided to do what? To go. Either to upstage Uhuru or to see whether they can have a one-on-one. And they at least they whispered to each other. You know, we saw them holding hands and whispering. What they whispered, we don't know. They might have whispered, can we meet later someplace? And since they smiled, you say probably they agreed.
Gachagua has on many occasions revealed about ongoing consultations with religious leaders and like-minded political allies, adding that a formal announcement is expected in January. It is, however, believed that the former DP will not consider any political marriage with ODM party leader Raila Odinga, should he fail to clinch the AUC chairmanship.
Well, the animosity between the two men is worse than the animosity between Uhuru and Gachagua. You know, in fact, Gachagua was campaigning all about William Mzee. And as I think I've just mentioned, the part of the reason Raila supported Ruto during the Gen Z is to stop Gachagua.
Political pundit Macharia Munene says Gachagua cannot be ignored at both Mount Kenya region and other parts of the country, following his unprecedented removal from office. He says the self-proclaimed truthful man has recently acquired public favor, gained from how he was treated by his former boss.
The impeachment appeared to be very unfair, and because of the sympathy, a lot of people are listening to him because he was wrongly treated. And even the person who brought the accusations did not appear to be sure of what he was talking about.
Other possible choices were joining Trans Nzoia Governor George Natembeya's Tawe movement, probably to convulse President William Ruto's government. A move that may hit a snag after Natembeya announced his ambitions to run for presidency after his term at the county. Natembeya has in some occasions been seen as a Gachagua ally. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Yes, indeed. Quite a lot of politics, 2027 politics playing around. We are not even at the point where we can say we're actually at the midterm. It's only slightly more than 2 years since the last election. But if you look at the dailies, you would think elections are coming up next week. On the front page of the Daily Nation, we have headlines suggest that the president is already looking for software that could help him with the re-election campaign. Online to acquire an online propaganda machine to counter hostility against his administration and boost his re-election campaign. Even the president is already thinking about his re-election. On the Star, battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? Still talking about the same thing. Okia Omtata on the front page of the Standard, why I'm keen on 2027. And on the front page of Taifa Leo, we talk about the same thing. Damu mpya ya urais. Na wanaweka picha pale ya watu kadhaa ambao wanadhaniwa pengine wataweza kuwa marais. Wengine wametangaza nia yao ya kuwa rais na wengine wanaambiwa pengine wana maadili mema. Probably they stand a better chance of being president come 2027. And it would appear that the president, although he came, he was elected with a popular vote, popular majority in 2027, he has thrown the race into disarray. The fact that an incumbent president is rarely challenged this early in his first term. Should we blame President Ruto for what you're seeing right now, that he has caused all this, even for some people we see on the front pages, to even believe or imagine that they could be president? Is it the doing of the president himself that we're seeing this happening now?
I think, Fred, the president may have his own reasons for what he has done. But I also think that Kenyans have increasingly become very dissatisfied or very impatient with the many programs that he has rolled out. Programs which to them don't go in any way to improve their welfare. But listening to the president last Thursday in Parliament, and he gave us the analogy of a farmer, that there's a planting season and you have to wait for the crops to sprout. I strongly believe that with time, most of these people will realign themselves, and many of them may end up back to his corner. But having said that, I also want to confirm, and especially from where I come, that our president's popularity has lowered than it was before. And it's something he needs to face and work. It doesn't make matters better, given that his own deputy has now gone on a war path. It is true that Rigathi Gachagua must have left with a chunk of his support base. And I think the president's calculation is to replace that support base with the Western and the Nyanza vote bloc. But then I keep asking myself, did it have to get to where it did? And I think it's politics, and I know 3 years is a long time, and things may realign themselves for better or for worse. But then, listening to Rigathi Gachagua, former deputy president, he has been very successful in selling the narrative that he was betrayed. He has also sold the narrative that some of the Central Kenyan members of parliament are responsible for his downfall, and ultimately the downfall of the mountain. And he has been able to actually also sell the narrative that the mountain is still intact. There's no east or west. But then I think in his enthusiasm, he has gone ahead and given told us that come January, he'll be telling the mountain the direction they must take. Now, as a student of strategy, there's something I must tell you. I would advise the Deputy President to go and read Wole Soyinka. A tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. It pounces. Rather than give threats, he should act. Because giving threats arms his enemies. And that is why you're seeing all these software issues coming up. Because you must be, they say in English, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And so when he tells us in come January, he'll announce us a direction, I'm sure his enemies have now something to do in January, He should be a bit more calculating. Now that his previous calculations obviously did not work out, and that's why he was impeached. Had they worked out, or if he was a proper strategist, he would still be Deputy President. But let me say this, Fred. 3 years is a long time. It is possible that none of these players will even be on the ballot come 3 years, in 3 years' time. And we've seen in Kenya, our presidential elections are determined less than 6 months to the actual ballot. And don't say that we are doing election, we are thinking of 2027. It is Lee Kuan Yew who said in his book that politicians think about the next election. And we are politicians. We must think about the next election. Come 2027, we win. We think about election of 2032. That is our work. Thank you.
But the president has been touted as being a master politician, chess master, that his calculations are superb when it comes to matters politics. Do you think that at some point he overcalculates? That some of the moves we've seen this year, the impeachment of his deputy, all we're seeing on the headlines today, could this all be a calculated move by the president? Is he that brilliant of a politician?
What I've learned about our president is too dismissive. He dismisses anything or everything which is brought to his table or to his attention. Or he dismisses people out there. He says, Mandugu, wachana na huyo. Mutambu, forget about him. Gakuya, hiyo tutakaranga. That kind of attitude. I'm saying so because if you go back to 2022, Ruto garnered almost 7.2, 7.1 million. Right? Out of 7.2 or 7.1, 3.5 million, 3.5 million are from Mount Kenya. Go to the records. Half of your votes from one region. And you ignore it in totality? And you tell me you are political professor? You ignore in totality a half. And there's one thing I would advise him. You may look at registered votes from regions, but there's a difference from registered votes and casted votes. How many people wake up to vote? If 3.5 million came from Mount Kenya, the rest of the country gave you 3.6. So 3.6 out of 7 regions. How much did you get from other regions? And especially from your region. Let us look at how much did you get from Rift Valley alone. How much? And how many votes did you get from Mount Kenya? And then we go off and just brush it out and forget about Wachana na Mulima. That is not an attitude I would advocate towards 2027 for him. But he has chosen that route. And that is where now Mr. Ndondi Tachi Mulima is coming in and saying, this is the area you have ignored. I will concentrate with this one. And 3.5 million votes, if those votes are entrusted on you, you have all the say. That is the way Raila thrives. because there is 5 million votes which are entrusted with him, and he's been getting them all through that percentage. From 1 million when he was with Moi, come to Kibaki around 2, come to Uhuru around 6 or so, come to Ruto 6 or so. So those votes are still there, and that's what makes Raila popular. Raila has not been elected for I don't know for how many years, more than 20-something years, since he lost Kibera, or since he went to vie for president and he left Kibera. Until today, Raila has never been elected anywhere. But I can tell you, he's more popular than the elected leaders in this country, and we cannot ignore that. Likewise, so Mr. Not Touch Mlima will come with the same theory that I have a basket of 3.5 or so million votes, which I can bring on the table. And if there's any serious contender who wants to be a president, I must be on that table. And that's why you see that list, although they omitted my name.
Are you also interested in the president?
I do not, you know, I don't know where they got it from. They did not.
At least 2 of them have expressed their intentions, or they've indicated their intention to actually see whether or not
We've been saying, yeah, anybody can become a president, including Kaguya here. So right. I don't know why I'm complaining why they did not put.
They should have included your name.
They should have, because
there's a lot of interest, especially.
But my point, there's a point I'm trying to drive home. Because you asked me about whether the president, Ruto, is a political genius. To me, with this act, I lower my marks. Yes, I had given him a lot of marks high there, but the way he's been behaving lately, with people, with politicians, the way he's been taking us and embracing only one clique of people, led by Oscar Sudi and those people, that is where he's farming, all right? That is this Shamba. These are my team, and these are the people I'm working with. He's not allowing any other person in. That is a dangerous trade for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
The kind of things we've seen this year, definitely a game changer. Now we're seeing the president, he has withdrawn, or maybe not the president, but the government has withdrawn the security for the former deputy president because of the kind of political undertones, especially the Mount Kenya region, and some pronouncements, him indicating that he'll say and give the region direction come January. Now we're seeing also the president going even a notch higher and seeking technology to actually push for his re-election, and even acquire an online propaganda machine to counter hostility. This means that the stakes are much higher this time round. Do you think the president is wrong in the kind of calculations he's making? Probably he has a card under the table that no one is seeing.
In the morning, let me say that any incumbent must be a foresight, having a foresight of re-election. And our nature of election are 2 terms for president in our current form of our constitution. And therefore, I don't think that any single sitting president will just sit and watch when he's overseeing a political crowd coming to blow him off and or to deny his election. And therefore, he will use any mechanism to defraud that kind of wave. In this case, I don't want to say that, in fact, the president did any single mistake in his calculation. But you may do your political arithmetic with the measure of intention, but it may backfire. And probably in the issue between him and his former deputy president, I would call it a miscalculation. If I was the head of state, there was those kind of small issues that I could have hold, because it could not have costed him anything major. Even to have one-on-one sitting and agree with your deputy. And at some point, there was a big wave, and that wave at some point it stopped. And he directed himself that this onslaught, stop it. I don't want to hear it.
Against his then deputy.
Yes. But all of a sudden, it then arose. And then when it arose, it came with very big force. And that's how Gachagua found himself under the bus. And I would say, maybe the calculation was, let us throw Gachagua under the bus at this stage. We cripple him from making resources and also preparing himself for 2027. Not knowing that, in fact, money is not everything. In politics, money is required. But I can tell you, if people have your trust, they mobilize money, even for what we call campaign. And I can tell you, most of the successful campaigns funds does not emanate from an individual. It's money raised by the global society. And in this case, I would say the placement of Gachagua and Kindiki, that I have been repeatedly saying this in the morning. It may not tilt the Mount Kenya position. But that does not mean William Ruto cannot find himself to the election because of Murima. Because there are other options. And he has already taken that option. By the time he brought Raila Odinga on the broad-based government is when Mount Kenya felt a betrayal. And at that point, nobody can stand to say that actually there was any other intention to bring Raila Odinga in the government. The main purpose was to assist the incumbent to onslaught Gachagua in terms of numbers in parliament. Because I have been repeating this, that if Raila was not part of this game, Gachagua still could have survived in both the house. It could be no magic to remove Gachagua with what we call Kenya Kwanza numbers, because they never have ever captured the 2/3 number. So there was no any miracle that they could secure 2/3 in this onslaught. And at the level we are, and point, the one who we lose is not Raila in this game. And I have been always saying it's unpredictable. 2027 is unpredictable. And we have two giants that will decide the destiny of 2027. That is Raila Odinga and Gachagua.
Right.
The two will be the key makers of whoever will be the king come 2027.
Yet we see the president really preparing this kind of high stakes technology.
I think, Fred, and I'm just being rational here, I have read through this story about the classified software. And reading through it raises a lot of curiosity as to its authenticity. First, there's a dual citizen called Washuka who comes and meets someone who works for the president in a restaurant in Hurlingham, Kilimani. The second meeting is in a private office. The third meeting is in a parking lot. And you're talking about $1 million contract. And this contract borders on what we would call artificial intelligence. I mean, you know, they say in English, when the deal is too good, think twice. In fact, this story reminds me of a Hollywood movie, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, 2008. This is just fiction. No serious software developer will be assigned such a major task so casually as she narrates in her own papers, in her own submissions in court. Never mind, of course the president may be preparing, but I don't think he's so callous and so casual as to prepare for his re-election in this manner, where you send someone to meet someone in a small restaurant and talk about this and talk about payment. And I mean, really? I think it's just a story that should be ignored, in my opinion. In any case, if the president wants to acquire software like this, he would go to the best developers in the world, and they would do it on the table, whether it is through a private treaty or through parliamentary budgetary allocation. Furthermore, even what this software is capable of doing can easily be done by students at Strathmore University. You know, predicting, and this software actually exists. You don't need someone from Canada to come and do it. So this is a story that I think should be ignored.
It is definitely an interesting story that Ruto men have been sued over classified spying software, a software that is said to probably even work on online propaganda to counter hostility and even boost a re-election campaign for the president. As Bwana Manduku says, it sounds more of fiction than reality. Let's take a break now. We'll come back to continue discussing more of the politics.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents, zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights,
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
strategies,
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
and stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
State of the Nation, a look at the headlines with my panelists Daniel Manduku, Joe Mutambo and James Gakuya. The front page of the Star newspaper talks about battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? Same discussion about the president's calculations or miscalculation. He appears to have given up on that block of voters. We saw what happened in Embu. Very embarrassing for the president, especially on the same podium as his predecessor. His choice of deputy president has been questioned by many. And that is the same question the Star is asking today. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? Do you think the president made the right choice in deputy president, at least politically, gaining some political muscle?
I think politically, he was trying to replace like for like. In that, given that Rigathi Gachagua comes from Mount Kenya, it was logical to replace him with someone from Mount Kenya. But Waswahili wanasema akufukuzaye akwambii toka. And the mood in Embu, if anything, shows that Kindiki has to work 10 times harder. Never mind the narrative that Rigathi Gachagua was able to sell. That, you know, you elected me and the replacement will be someone who's been a stooge, who will be a stooge to the president. And that seems to have sunk in with the residents of the mountain. And then also, remember the event in Murang'a, at the burial of the late MCA, where even reading condolence messages for both the deputy president and the president became a challenge. Mm-hmm. It shows you that the replacement has to work 10 times harder from the face of it. Mm-hmm. But again, I always say that, you know, you have to make tough choices. And I think the president decided to make a tough choice in that it was untenable for him to continue working with Rigathi Gachagua. And so he had to get a replacement. And in the person of Kindiki, given that Kindiki was also in the race, as we are told. But the question the people from Central will always ask is, he was not on the ballot. And that will be a question that not anyone can answer except the president himself. Mm-hmm. And so, going forward, I think Mount Kenya seems to be charting their own path. And in their own calculations, and even from the way they are thinking, they are now feeling like orphaned in this Kenya Kwanza government, which they claim to have strongly supported, and which is true, going by the numbers. I don't know what the president will do to appease them, because also, as you know, they are difficult to appease. They always want to have a bigger share of the national cake, and which some of us from other regions feel always squeezed. If you come to government today, for example.
There's a factor of the retired president, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Uhuru Kenyatta, our former president, may not have a bigger say because he will not be on the ballot. I think for them, it is that person on the ballot who will drive the agenda. But what I was saying in the Muli, look at the cabinet secretaries, for example. They still have almost half of the cabinet secretaries. In Kisii, we only have one. We have no single PS. They have about 15. If you go to state corporations, they still have majority. And they're still not satisfied. Mm-hmm. So you wonder, Gakuya's brothers and sisters, what do they really want?
All right. Bwana Mutambo, do you think that probably we are being a bit impatient with the Deputy President, Kithure Kindiki, in terms of his political muscle? It's only been, 26 days since he came in. Already critics are saying he doesn't appear charismatic enough for the kind of political job the president requires, especially in the mountain. Isn't it too soon to judge him that harshly?
One, I would agree with you, it's too soon to judge him. Two, I would say it as it is. And I will never tire to tell you. There is no love between Mulima and Ruto. It's gone. I told you a long time ago. There's no love. So sending or expecting my good friend, Professor, to turn the tables in Mount Kenya is like asking him to strike water from a stone or from a rock. And if history is anything to go by, and understanding how people or how regions or how, let me be tribal here and say tribes fought in this country, I have told you, Mulima never fought for anybody. They vote against. They don't vote in, they vote out. So what will be their agenda 2027 is to vote somebody out. And who is that person? Your guess is as good as mine, I told you. Mm-hmm. They don't vote for, they vote against. So if they will be voting against, who will be that person they will be voting against? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. What Deputy President need to do, the current one now, is not to waste his energy trying to bring Mount Kenya, because he will not. He need to look at soft spots. He need to cast his nest to other areas, and especially where he comes from. You know he comes from Eastern. You need to consolidate Eastern first before you go to Central. It's not from Central. It's from Eastern. It's more of Kamba than my cousins or my in-laws. So you need to concentrate more on low-lying fruits as opposed to go to those which are at the top. And it is very difficult to reach there because there are a lot of obstacles. There is Uhuru there, there is Gachagua there is a lot of people there, and there is also a number of people who are, leftovers, who are scattered everywhere, including Gaguya here, who is in Nairobi. And like you were saying, you need to look at which constituency can help you in terms of regions or tribes, if you may. And you ask yourself, if I want Kambas, will I get a number in Nairobi for Kambas to support me? Mm-hmm. Yes. You will have people in Nairobi, or you'll have Kambas in Nairobi as opposed to Kalenjins. You go to Mombasa region, coast region, you will have more Kambas in that region, which will help you garner the 25% as opposed to the Kalenjin you want to bank on. All right? So when it comes to Mulima, Mulima is a gone case. That one is gone, done. It's a wife you were married to, but you divorced and they married another man. And now they are pregnant for another child. Called I don't know who. Whoever comes, the father will come. All right? So at this moment, asking Kindiki to deliver Mount Kenya for you, my good professor, is a very good person. Actually, I like him very much. And he has my support. But for him to penetrate Mount Kenya with this kind of hostility, with the Gachaguas there, with the Uhuru there, and the way those people were treated, do you want to tell me, although we say in politics, anything can happen. Mm-hmm. And that is what I'm expecting to happen to my good friend Ruto. What you don't know, or what Raila don't know, is that Raila today, the mission, why he was brought, it's already been accomplished. So Raila is a spent cartridge going forward in terms or in matters Ruto. It's a spent cartridge in Ruto's whatever arrangement. He brought him to do some certain job.
In 2027.
He brought him to do some certain job. And he has already done it. Well done, Raila, you have delivered. So going forward, there's nothing more for you.
Okay.
Even the AU, I told you here before. Do you see energy from the government trying to lure other presidents for Raila to win? He has been left alone. Did you see how Ruto made a 360 degrees on a done deal? And he has left Raila's men now to handle the muddy part of explaining to Kenyans what is all this. It has been left with Opiyo Wandayi. It has been left with Badi. It has been left with Raila. It has been left with Mudavadi. Do you see Oscar Sudi there? Do you see anybody near Adani? It is those people now. Is you carry the baggage. So the man calculated very well, and he said, "Okay, this thing is bringing issue. So who do I come and dump it to?" And he dumped it to Raila. In the face of Kenyans, they see it is like ODM who owns the Adani deal more than Ruto, and that is a very dangerous perspective.
Back to the issue of the deputy president, just before even the impeachment process and the swearing in of Kithure Kindiki, he had received a lot of support from elected members of parliament of Mount Kenya region. That in itself says a lot. That kind of endorsement by the 48 who made that Nyahururu declaration was something. Are we saying that counts for nothing as we speak right now?
In the morning, I just want to refer to a very simple political arithmetic. You may be having 100 members of parliament who has no ground. What do? In terms of numbers of parliament, you are safe. In terms of passing bills, you are safe. In terms of passing any government business, you are safe. But in terms of political numbers, vote for an election, you are doomed. That's the situation. Mm-hmm. That does not mean today those members who endorse Kindiki, he can be very comfortably moved to the ground with them. If the ground is hostile to Kindiki himself, do you think the ground is not hostile to the members? Mm-hmm. That's the position. And that is how it is. And one thing is that I don't want to be very tribal on this, but as much as politics are concerned, I think Mount Kenya region did the best in the last election. Mm-hmm. It has never...
In terms of voter turnout?
Of course, in the last election, because there were members of their own who were on the ballot, but they never dared to go to that election. They had a mission, because already they had decided that this time round, we have something to be back to Ruto. And they stood by that position to the end. Remember, one of their own was the sitting member, was the sitting president then. He tried to woo them back to his position, and they ignored in totality, and they went to where their mindset was. As we speak, what they are seeing ahead is a total betrayal, total political. To change them from that perspective, it will be very hard. And I told you, give them interior position, give them what, they will not value.
Wow. Battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? That's a question there on the front page of the Star, and according to everyone on this panel, it looks like it's a done deal. As we get to the end of the discussion, there was some discussion earlier this week about another piece of legislation that is also controversial, and this one has to do with the IEBC. The Elections Amendment Bill 2024. It's currently before the Senate. It aims to repeal Section 39 of the Elections Act, replacing live streaming with electronic transmission of results to tallying center. They want to do away with live streaming of results by IEBC. I want to get your opinion on that as we come to the end, as you make your final comments.
Again, Fred and Muli, this is again retrogressive. In this era of technology, artificial intelligence, ICT infrastructure that is so enabled on the backbone of fiber optics, it is rudimentary to start arguing that you should not live stream. And that obviously will create suspicion. People will think that this has been done so as to camouflage the real results when they're due. If you look at progressive societies, including the United States of America, live streaming is allowed even at the polling station, by even independent networks. You're allowed to go to the the tallying center as an independent network like TV47 and actually do your live streaming. Because it is assumed that this enhances transparency and openness, which is a very key ingredient in any election. And so this is another piece of legislation where I think the government, if it is government-sponsored, is wasting time. People on social media will take that gap, will fill the gap. Because in every polling station or in every counting station or tallying station, there are people with technology. They'll take that gap, which is bound to even create more problems, because then you'll have conflicting numbers. Rather than have a law that specifies and allows for live streaming by the IEBC as it is currently. And so I think it is just ill-advised.
Okay. Bwana Mutambo?
You know, when a hyena wants to hit fellow hyena, it says it's smelling like a goat. The smell of this hyena is of a goat, so it will be attacked. When you start hearing some things, it is always important to listen to what is not being said. When you see people coming out to talk about some softwares, you know, we need to expound on that. What is this being said here? Is it only a propaganda software, or is it a software to capture and to manipulate the results of election? You need to ask yourself so many questions to come to the reality. So this software thing is something I will not even put under the carpet. Somebody is talking somewhere, is telling us. You remember the story of Kivuitu, when Kivuitu was telling us, you know, I don't know where my returning officer is from Tharaka Nithi. Kivuitu was telling Kenyans election is being rigged, but we did not listen to him. We only concentrated on the returning officer, but we never listened to what Kivuitu was telling us. When this person comes and says, you know, I was approached to bring this software, because if it is the software for propaganda, politics is made of propaganda. Even us as members of parliament, we have them. As we go to our campaigns, we have our mechanism, we have our softwares to draw a picture of my good friend here with swollen face. Those are softwares to malign his name, to say how bad he is. Those softwares are there to create those news. They are there. It's not that they are not there. But somebody is telling us something. And when you come and say, now, we don't want to stream live how many votes were casted in a Kamukunji polling station, and we don't want to show Kenyans, okay? What does that tell you? What are you trying to do here in between that gap of not streaming live to come and tell us it was like this? Because you know, once the numbers have been printed out and and added up, if you have anything to, on the contrary, the process is you go to court, all right? IBC has already announced. So this kind, and that's what I was saying, you know, we are trying to make so many laws which will conflict the existing ones. And that will be disadvantage to Kenyans. So this is a law, we need to look at it at toothpicks. What are you telling us? Why are you bringing this now? And it has been existing. What has changed? What is the bad thing that the existing law is doing? What disservice the existing law is doing to us? If it is not doing disservice, why change? Why do you change a winning team? If you have a good team which is winning the match, why do you want to change it and bring another person in? Continue with what you have, which is winning. Because at the end of the day, the joy of the game is to win. So if IBC is performing well with streaming and Kenyans are getting the information they so deserve, why do you want to deny them that information? What is it that you want to do? And one thing my good friend is doing, our president, is shooting himself on people. In anything he touches, it backfires. And you know, we were also talking about the numbers of what region. There is one region we forgot to mention. There is one region called religion. And right now, the fight is between the president and the religious group. That is more dangerous war to engage into as opposed to engage a war in Mount Kenya. Because if I'm a Catholic, the same feeling I will have as a Catholic in Nairobi, it is the same feeling a Catholic will feel in Sugoi. Okay? And that will affect him so dearly. And what is happening is that if people who surround him, they don't realize that, instead of taking it to the right direction, they dive in to wage a war with the clergy. And I said it here, and I don't fear saying, when you listen to Gladys, the deputy speaker, speak, when you hear a good friend Sudi speak, that kind of attitude towards clergy is attributed to the president. And that is a very dangerous war to pick, because the numbers of clergy is even more than Eastern, Northeastern, than I don't know what region. So that is another disadvantage. And anything president is touching is backfiring on him, and you need to look at that.
Bwana Gakuya, given the fact that up to now we still don't have an IEBC in place, that leaves a lot in disarray. The fact that we're still seeking to adjust and amend laws governing IEBC, it says a lot about our preparations for elections. Are we trying to engineer something different 3 years before the election?
Idimbule, what I would say is that the kind of intended role, and especially this legislation that is in Senate advocating about blocking live transmission. If you want to block live transmission, what is your idea? What is your motive? In fact, the perception is that there is a premeditation to rig election. Otherwise, why do you want to remove already existing law, which is giving freedom to what we call live transmission of results? Do you want to take us back to the dark days? I don't think that's the direction we should take at this point in time. And whoever is bringing this particular kind of registration is somebody who wants Kenyans still to be in the dark and in mark timing in matters to do with the election results. I think where we are, in terms of the progressive, we have progressed in election preparation. What we need to do for now is to put some regulations and put effort to make our election more visible and more easy. That in fact we move from what we call paper and then we go electronic. Okay. I think that is where we should be, so that we can be able to reach the level of US and those other progressed nations where you can vote wherever you are. Okay. I think in this country, we need to arrive to a level where election, you can make an election wherever you be, as much as the candidate you are intending to vote is a candidate of your choice.
Are you concerned that we still don't have an IEBC in place and you're about to go on a very long recess on the 6th?
It's unfortunate and a very sad case that in fact at this age, people of Banisa still they have for 1 year and above without a member of parliament. Just imagine what the constituents of that particular constituency are lacking. They are lacking development and they are lacking services. I don't think that it is of any good for us to be in this wide scope of having living without with that kind of big vacuum of having no a constituted commission that actually deals with the election. Remember, we have lost the 12 years threshold to do the eliminations of our boundaries. It tells you that in fact there may be no time even to do those eliminations before the election is done. Then what you are doing is making deserve to Kenyans, because Kenya requires services. And in fact, what we should be doing currently is to find what we call equality in terms of numbers, because our constitution had at least a cluster where A number of constituencies which did not perform to the level of the threshold were marked. At this point, we could be asking ourselves, are those constituencies still safe? Have they attained the population that's required by the law so that at least they can be cleared to be safe? Or where are we? But not that this is not the high time to be having such a vacuum we are in. That vacuum to us is totally deserving. And I will urge that the head of state, because he cannot point finger to anybody else. He's the head of state and all the backstops at him. He should make sure that he hasten the process to have the commission. Today, we have what we can call good relationship between him and Raila Odinga. And Raila Odinga then was the problem. And if you are good buddies for now, I don't think that, in fact, there is any barrier to block that particular process to come to a reality.
All right. Yes. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I wanted to ask you, should we really read mischief in this delay? You're going for a long recess.
Yesterday, in my contribution to the President's address, I pointed that out, that the absence of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission should have concerned the President, given that he's in a position to even call those who have gone to court and sit down with them and agree on a way forward. Of course, there's a school of thought that has pushed forward the argument that this is a conspiracy to ensure that the non-reconstitution of IEBC remains like that, so that there's no possibility of recall, which may trigger a few by-elections, which may ultimately give direction to the next election. So that is a story that people are talking about. And the longer we wait, then it gives credence to that theory. But then I think with or without that conspiracy theory, it is incumbent upon us as leaders to speedily ensure that we have a fully fledged independent electoral and boundaries commission. Not just to address the issue of election and the boundary delimitation, but to abide by the Constitution. I wish we were so efficient the way we did the Gachagua impeachment on this matter and other matters.
Right, Bwana Mutambo, on this issue of
having commission in place now, it disadvantages the sitting government, because the commission will be required by the law to do what Gakuya is talking about, reviewing the boundaries. And if we review the boundaries today, it will be disadvantage to the sitting government, because we know what will happen and where more seats will come from and how the numbers will shift. So that is not something which the president will not feel like is a Lingala music to his ears. He will not like that. That is number one. Number two, we also have several constituencies without members of parliament. Either some pastors, others were co-opted to the government and then they left their seats, and those people are not being served. To go to election today will prove something to the government, and that will amount to like a vote of no confidence. If a government loses an election or an opinion, it amounts to a vote of no confidence, and that is something which will not make the president to feel. So it is by design to have no commission at this moment. It is not to the advantage of the sitting government. So it's by design, it's by choice. Otherwise, if it was a serious government which really adheres to the Constitution, by today we would have the commission running. And then you will come to ask yourself, when it comes to electing the members to represent Kenyans, we are told there is no IEBC. When you want to impeach Gachagua, there is an IEBC giving a letter. So, as Kenyans, we don't know what to believe about this government. That's one thing which takes me aback and think twice.
20 months. It's been 20 months without IEBC commissioners in place. And the members of the National Assembly will be going on recess on the 6th of December, on long recess. He'll be back, I think, in mid-February next year?
Yeah.
All right. So, well, interesting times. Thank you so much, Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba, Joe Mutambo, former MP Mwingi Central, and James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, for your time at TV47 as we continue discussing and considering the headlines as varied as they come on our dailies this morning. Asanteni sana for your time at TV47.
Thank you.
A lot more coming up after the break. We'll be going for some cassava farming all the way in Homa Bay. And do stand by later on the discussion about gender-based violence. Today is the second day of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And this is indeed a big discussion. We'll be having it right here on Morning Cafe. Let's take a break now.